I suppose we've listened a lot to returning scholars, and some of the people who are in the middle of their research. And before we finish up for the day, we'll be meeting some of the new scholars. But it's just interesting, I suppose, and it came across in a lot of the presentations, is aside from the research side of it, the impact that being a Nuffield scholar has on your personal life and your professional life. And I'll start with you, Kevin, because you're beside me, but a very active dairy farmer. And when I asked you what your biggest learning from Nuffield was, it was that the farm could survive without you.
Yes, it's a good learning, isn't it? So yeah, and sometimes as farmers we take it for granted we can't be replaced. So definitely one of the early learnings of getting a scholarship is to organise yourself to make time to get away. So that was really reassuring when you come back and the farm is running better than it was when you were there. So that's
you should go away more often.
Yeah, so that's really good, and I suppose you're learning that organisation skill. You're delegating out the jobs, So that's definitely one of the unforeseen benefits of maybe getting a scholarship and learning to delegate, and it does give you more time then to look at your business or look outside your business, and certainly I suppose. The second thing I mentioned to you was, when you're traveling a bit and you're meeting very successful people in different topics, and success isn't always brilliant for some people. It comes at a cost of maybe a marriage or something like that. So for me, being aware of that on my travels is really good, and tried to communicate at home and making sure wife, Margaret, and family, with a young family at the time, that was really useful.
Because you were saying some of the more successful farmers you met possibly had the least successful personal lives.
Yeah, it happens. People get engrossed in their business, and it can be business at all costs, and there's some consequences that are not nice with that, and it's a good way. You can destroy wealth by doing that too, So I think having a work-life balance is really important, that we give time, family time every year. We always made time for holidays and for ourselves in the middle of whatever we're doing, and that travelling is part of that, learning that was part of that.
Maeve, you were telling me that you actually had to postpone your travels as a Nuffield scholar for very personal reasons, and it was to do with your sister's health. And then if we go full circle, your sister actually then, I suppose, her life benefited from Nuffield as much as yours did.
Yeah, and she's here today. I suppose I was awarded a Nuffield scholarship in 2015, and I had to defer it to 2016. My sister Clara, she needed a liver transplant at the time, and we had our flights booked to go to the UK, to the King's Hospital. There was me, my mother, and my other two sisters were all being tested. So we were going to be a potential donor, and at the time everything was up in the air. We didn't know who was going to be the potential donor. We had to postpone. And I suppose on from that then, my study topic was lameness in dairy cows, which I'm quite passionate about, coming from a dairy farm and having invented the rollover crate as well. So I suppose I wanted to learn more about lame cows. Didn't find a huge amount happening here in Ireland, and I was Googling and I found out that there was an international lameness conference on in Denmark.
In the Legoland Hotel.
In Legoland, and when I landed off with a taxi in front of Legoland Hotel, which is actually all Lego on the outside, I was like, I think I'm in the wrong place here. But no, lo and behold, go inside in the doors. There was the rooms absolutely filled. I think 182 was the count at the conference of vets who spent their full time on lameness, researchers and professional hoof trimmers. And it was just mind-blowing to see what was being done on lameness all across the world. There was 26 different countries at the conference, and I was the only Irish at the conference, but it was mind-blowing. Then at the conference, I was talking to people, and I was making contacts, I seen shoes for cows that I'd never seen before, glues and stuff. I loaded up my suitcase going home full of shoes, not normal shoes. And I was saying, look what they have over in different countries, and can we bring this to Ireland? So that led to us setting up a whole new company called Hoofcare Direct, because as an end user of the rollover crates, you're going to need shoes and glues, and this was stuff that I hadn't seen before. And that led to setting up Hoofcare Direct, which is basically, it's an online shop that my sister...
Oh, mind yourselves. God, sorry.
Thank you, Tadhg.
Okay. Soft landing.
It's a good thing you have a tough head, Tadhg. You caught it and...
Oh, yeah.
A stiff neck.
So I suppose,
Hoofcare Direct was set up as a result, and Clare is running that business.
Of making those contacts, and Clare is now running Hoofcare Direct, and we still have suppliers from different countries, and there's Hoofcare products go throughout Ireland every day.
So probably Nuffield played as big a role in your life, Clara, as it did in Maeve's life. And Claire, your chosen topic for Nuffield was succession, and again, you had a very personal reason to choose this as something to study.
Well, it's very personal to every family, and equally in ours it was. My dad was, we'll use the modern day term, the favourite nephew, going back many, many years. So he was born in Mayo and brought down by his dad to North Cork, to the farm that I'm living on. But he was only a little child.
He was only 3.5 when he was farmed out.
3.5, Catherine, yeah. So naturally that had an impact on him. He never wanted to be selected for anything, but he encouraged all of us to put yourself forward. So, in hindsight, we know why he didn't put himself forward, but he did encourage us. Go on, you'll be good at that. And I'd kind of go, and then you'd figure out, of course. But there were moments that it meant a lot to him that we did put ourselves forward.
But it led to, with you, a fascination with how people ended up on the farm.
I really was. When I went to Kildalton, there were only 8 girls and 56 lads, which was a fantastic balance as a female. And then asking, how come you're farming? And everybody had a different story, even though most of them were probably dairy and mixed farms at that stage. But everybody had a different story. And the story fascinated me, and how it was communicated. And we were young, 18, 19, 20. And at that stage, Tadhg O'Keeffe, whom many of you would know, Paddy interviewed me as a student of the year, and he said, whatever you do, stay studying. Stay on top of your topic, whatever it is. And when Paddy would meet you, it was, well, what are you doing now and what are you doing next? It wasn't what you did yesterday. So you always had to have something ready from when Paddy would meet you. And at that young age, it was great to have a mentor who said, go on, go for what you're uncomfortable with within your own area and just stay with it. So it was...
And just like, I suppose, Maeve's Nuffield research and studies led directly to her setting up a business, you, within a year of finishing your research, you had set up Succession Ireland.
Absolutely. And I recall being in São Paulo, in Brazil, saying, what will I call this? Teasing around. And sometimes when you're far away from home, you get this mental space to come up with a word. And it was a fellow Nuffield scholar over a steak and probably a glass of wine. Succession Ireland. I said, Succession Ireland. And came home with the name. That's how it evolved.
Now, I don't know if ye can tell, but the Nuffield connection isn't the only common thread running through our 4 panellists. They're all from Cork, as you can probably tell by the accents. And our final Corkman, Tadhg, you did your studies in 2009.
Yep.
And 2009 was a particularly turbulent year for farming, so that probably dictated in a way what you chose to study?
Yeah, it did. I suppose we had come through, I suppose I was working in AIB at the time, and we had come through a really good period in terms of, particularly on the dairy side, in terms of commodity prices. It was the first real surge in milk prices that happened in 2007 particularly. It was a very, very good year, and it lasted into 2008, and then 2009 we saw a crash, across all the prices really. And I think I was only looking back last week. We were at a talk with Seamus Coffey from the Fiscal Advisory Council, and he actually put up the data for the economy for 2009. And not only did everything else crash, but agriculture went through a horrendous time in 2009. And it was that, I suppose, that year, and trying to see, because what had happened is we had gone from, farmers having a lot of cash reserves to like literally, almost overnight going to a situation where the price of milk reduced, nearly halved in the space of 9 months. So yeah, that kind of encouraged me then to go and look at the whole volatility side of it and see what other countries were doing in terms of trying to manage that risk. So yeah, and I suppose, look, it was a hugely positive experience for me. I mean, what got me into Nuffield was seeing people like Kevin and Clare, what they had done, and looking at people, the indie industry. It was a great initiative set up by, I think, the Irish thing, Michael Berkeley and Matt Dempster in the audience today, and a huge amount of praise should go to them for bringing this into Ireland. And what struck me as well, it was the first time I was ever exposed to the whole policy side of it in Brussels as well, because as part of the Contemporary Scholars Conference, we started in London and then we went to Brussels. So we spent a couple of days in London. We were with hosted by Nuffield UK, and they were very, very good to us. But we then went to Brussels, and the best meeting of anyone, of the meeting that most people enjoyed by far, was meeting with Michael Tracy, the IFA policy director at the time, and he told the British that the EU was a Franco-German axis who, with their friends in Ireland, and made the English feel like they were, or the British feel like they were part of it. And when you look at it, maybe he was trying to tell us something at the time that subsequently happened. But I suppose then you got to see what was going on in Brussels, and that was, I think, a big thing for me in terms of the policy side of it, and it got me interested in that side of it. But the one thing I took from my Nuffield more than anything was, it gave me much more of an appreciation for how good Irish agriculture was at the time and the position we were in. And I came away after spending however many weeks travelling, saying, we have plenty of challenges and plenty of issues, and we still have them today. But all in all, is there any country you go to go farming in ahead of it? And there wasn't that many, because I think there was an awful lot of other aspects that you learned. The social aspect of it as well was very much came to me as part of, particularly when I was in New Zealand, where you saw that social side of it in Ireland that wasn't there in New Zealand in terms of how farmers are embedded in their communities.
So it gave you an appreciation of what we have at home, but you were saying it also broadened your view. It gave you a much wider worldview of farming and agriculture.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, particularly that time, because while you had the internet and all that, you didn't have the same information sharing you have today. And even today, I mean, what it made me do, I think, much more was it challenged the way I thought about different aspects of agriculture. I think it makes you become an independent thinker because you're away, you're travelling, and it makes you challenge maybe some of the norms that you thought were the case and what you were hearing in Ireland, because an awful lot of the information we get in Ireland is coming through this, similar sources. So, it gave you opportunity as well to think about, agriculture, where it was going, and it really did broaden your horizons in a whole host of ways.
That was something that you mentioned as well to me, Kevin, that in a way, if you look outside of your own place and what's happening in the outside world, it's almost easier to predict what's going to happen in Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was the one big wake-up call I got traveling around. Is like the world's a very big place, and particularly over time and the last 20 years and more traveling since, the policies, let's say, in Europe now are different, completely different to every other country in the world, almost completely different. And it's only when you visit the countries you can understand why things are different and why it's that way. But getting up, like we're an exporting nation, so we export a lot of our product onto the world market. So it's very important to see what's happening in the world in terms of the changes, the winds of change that are out there, in terms of what can happen. In terms of beef price, where it was 12 months ago in the States, it had gone off way up, and it happened here within a couple of months later. So, it's a world market we're dealing with. So it's really, you get out there and you can see what's happening, and you should be able to predict. No one can predict too much, but you can definitely see the trends that are happening around the world, and we're very exposed to those trends. No matter what policies, protections we think we have, we're completely exposed on a marketplace level, and it's very hard to get any real margin. The EU, we think we have a margin over the rest of the world, but we have a massive cost going with that margin, which squeezes it out again. So, we're very much interlinked with what's happening in the world, so we need to be aware of that all the time.
And if you go back to the personal, you were saying that the hardest bit, I don't know if this is for you or for your wife, was travelling and being away for so long with young children. I think you had 3 young children at the time, and there is a lot of travel involved, so it might look like great fun up there on the slides, but that can be hard work.
Well, it is difficult, and most people in this room would have experience of it now at different stages, and you need a strong bond to make that happen, and a give and take, and an understanding of what's it about and what's it for, and stuff like that. So everyone needs to be on the same bus, going in the same direction, and I was very lucky, to have a great wife and Margaret to stick with us and through the journey and whatnot, and develop and grow as well.
Travelling with 3 young children left behind is hard enough. You did it with 4 young children left behind, Claire. So it does have an impact on the family.
It does, definitely. 2 were 10 and 12, and then I had 2 younger. I remember my 5-year-old, I was in Australia, and our mobile phones weren't as good as they are now. Like we're talking about 16, 17 years ago. And he said, "Mammy, have you forgotten to come home?" And I remember sitting, I was out in the bush, and I sat and I cried. Like, how was I going to tell the little child, "You've 9 more sleeps before Mammy will be home"? But I said, "I'll be home for your birthday." His birthday was in August. But to him, sure, Mammy, it was gone,
Yeah.
So if you have young children, I think that's the greatest challenge. But yeah, no, I mean, it has given them the freedom to travel. I have a son now in Melbourne, and he says, "Sure, ma'am, you know Melbourne?" I go, "Yeah, I do." So it has given them the freedom to travel.
And there's a network of people you meet along the way, and you were saying, Maeve, you still have, what year were you a scholar again? 15?
Yeah.
But you still have an active WhatsApp group of the people you met on your travels.
Yeah, so I did, the GFP in 2016, so that's the group that we'd be still in contact with today. And you just become so close with these people, because they're away from your families, you're away from your businesses. It's such a big thing, and when you're traveling together for that intense amount of time, you just develop such a network between yourselves. And today we'd be getting notifications in the group if someone has a new child, or someone's after getting married, or someone has a grandchild now. And yeah, it's great. We're still all in contact.
And you even brought your discussion group over to visit one of them.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. We went to the Netherlands. I brought my local discussion group to visit one of the farms. Yeah.
Okay. Tadhg, you were saying the importance of, and it's something you really do get a sense of today. As I said, it's my first Nuffield conference. Giving something back is important, and you've been a board member of Nuffield. Now, I don't know whether that's because you're somebody who can't say no, or whether it's giving something back, but it's an organisation that stays with you and you stay with it.
Yeah, it is. I think you even see it today. You look at the conference, today's conference, and people involved in that, organising today's conference, which I had nothing to do with, even though I'm on the board. And then you have next year's triennial, and you see Molly and Mary and others, they're already involved in that. So I think there is a great, I think people do appreciate the opportunity it gives you. Yeah, I came back afterwards and I joined the boards not that long after my scholarship, because I did want to, I felt like, you do feel that you owe it to the organisation to keep it going. And look, the organisation has a critical mass now, whereas back that time, we didn't have that many Irish scholars, so it was, it was probably, it was important that we kept it going, because we knew once we kept adding scholars year on year, and of the quality of the scholars that you see on show now, we knew that once we got past a certain inflection point, that it would just, take off. And it's great to see where it is now versus, when as I said, when I did my scholarship, we had the first time we ever had an Irish conference was when we presented our. We actually did the Nuffield conference in the UK, in Edinburgh, and then we decided to have one in Ireland for our own scholars. That was the first year we actually had an Irish conference. And we had dinners before that, but there wasn't a conference.
The impact you were saying it had on you was that it I suppose, helped you decide that this was an industry you wanted to stay involved with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because before that, I was tying with, I was in agriculture. But I had opportunities to maybe, within my career, to maybe go and maybe go another direction. But after that, I felt like this was the sector I wanted to stay in, the industry I wanted to stay in, both from outside of my, I'm now full-time active farming, dairy farming, and as well as that, outside of it, I just wanted to, I felt it was the sector I wanted to stay in. When I saw how Ireland was positioned internationally as well, and how well respected it was internationally as well, for me, it was. I think we've plenty of challenges, but we do an awful lot right here. And I think sometimes, it was Larkin was saying it earlier, like we do catastrophize stuff here. And, maybe I'm probably, my employer can be responsible for some of that at times. But at the same time, it is important, you talk about succession, I think it is important as well that we make sure people understand that we've an awful lot going for us too. And that while we have challenges, every country has challenges, and every sector in Ireland has challenges as well. And we've an awful lot going for us, and we are, we're bloody good at what we do in terms of farming and food, and maybe we don't say that enough at times.
And it's not always succession. That's not always the route into farming. And you were saying to me, how many of your former employees are now renting their own farms?
Yeah, there'd be over a dozen of them now at this stage that would be out leasing their own dairy farms or in some kind of a partnership or themselves or share farming or something.
So it's something they've seen you doing and they're replicating.
It's absolutely brilliant to see the next generation coming in and I think that's the way forward for a lot of young people coming in, because farmland is expensive and entry points are expensive and leasing is definitely a way for them to get in without having to put in the capital cost of buying land. So, everything we can do to get the next generation into farming is really important, and it's up to us as the active farmers to make those gates open for them and bring pathways in for them. And we're probably not great at doing that in Ireland, so we need to develop pathways for them.
And if we talk, I suppose, about the next generation, we've got the next generation of Nuffield scholars here in front of you with your wealth of experience. And with hindsight, I'll go to each of you individually. What advice would you give to the scholars sitting here today?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of it is captured in what Nuffield put in. I think it was Bill O'Keeffe, that saying of planting scholars, nourishing ideas and harvesting leaders. For me, that's where Nuffield is at. We want to bring in good people into Nuffield and let them develop themselves as well as getting help from people to develop. But I think it's really important that Nuffield gives back. So Nuffield scholars give back into the future and be part of the agricultural society, whatever way that is, or even the local community, whatever that way that is. And I think that's really success for me as Nuffield. So, for people to aspire to that, I think it'd be really good.
Maeve, what advice would you have for the
new Nuffield scholars? I suppose becoming a Nuffield scholar, it opens up so many doors. It opens up such a large address book to such inspiring people, and it's just to tap on all that knowledge and make the most of it. It's a wonderful experience.
Claire?
Just on Tadhg's point and giving back, if you get a phone call from Catherine, and she's paying you a compliment, she's going to ask for something. And
a great woman for getting you to give back. Yeah.
and it's a privilege to think that we're being asked to give back. I think it's a privilege if you're asked, would you mentor a student? Would you be available to assist with interviewing? Could you help a student? That somebody thinks that we have the ability, and we give of our best back because somebody helped us to get to where we are today. Many, many people helped all of us. So I think it's important that we give back quietly, at least to Nuffield, and that goes out beyond that. Advice to the young students, travel as if your case is not going to arrive with you. So wherever you're going tomorrow morning, that you have in your bag what you need for tomorrow morning.
Well, we heard about missing luggage already, I think.
It does happen, all of us. And I suppose I'd look at the next generation. If I had time, I'd look from the 7 to the 17-year-olds. That's the area that I'd love, and I will. That's where I'm now going for the next generation. That the passion, and many of us smelled silage this morning. If any of you had to push in silage or give silage, how can you explain what that smell is like to a child who's never seen silage, only maybe on a video? How can you describe the smell of silage? but you'll recognise it because you know it. So this morning, I was pushing in silage, and I said, I know that smell. Like, it was very good quality silage. And I said, you know, but to a child who's never smelt that, at 17, if they're in TY and they go to visit a farm, oh my gosh, that's not an attractive smell. So we need to go with the 7 to the 17-year-olds. That's another topic. But, those links.
And you'd also said to me that there's no question that's a stupid question, and that I suppose the alumni, you're there to answer questions, aren't you?
Absolutely. And no matter what it is, and people might ring up apologetically or send an email. It's wonderful that they feel we've something to give. It's such a privilege that we're being asked. So there is no such thing as a stupid question. And we all know somebody who can help somebody if we can't do it ourselves. And it's the network. It's beyond Nuffield, like from my study days. The doors it has since opened in so many ways. When you say, I'm a Nuffield scholar, and you're never a former Nuffield scholar, you're always a Nuffield scholar. And that's a privilege. You're always a Nuffield scholar. And to use that network, because it's fantastic. Okay. It really is. It's a privilege, always.
Great. Tadhg?
I suppose just the only thing I'd add, I suppose, is like, you know, we saw some really good stuff in the presentation. An awful lot of work has gone in by the scholars in the reports. And I think it's important to get that message out there, so that there's the relief of having the report done, and the wave of it's like, the leaving cert is over. But it is important that using the opportunity to get the message out there about the report, because that then helps. It helps the organisation as well, because people can see, well, look, this is what Nuffield is doing, and exposes the others in the industry to the scholars as well, which is hugely important, and it's about and giving them an opportunity to build a network through that as well in Ireland.
Because personally, you found that, didn't you? That you didn't stop talking about your research once the conference was over, and that helped you professionally. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I was lucky enough that the volatility was so prevalent at the time, and some of the academics that I had linked in with during my study, would have then, I suppose, maybe had, pointed out to others that, this work and this study has been done, and it gave me an opportunity to probably share that and disseminate it, amongst farmers, and then that really did stand to me down the road then as well. Sure.
Okay. So I suppose to the returning scholars in particular, then your job isn't done. There's more to do. We were tight for time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. And I hope for the new and returning scholars that you learned something from that. I'd like to thank our panel, Kevin Twomey, Maeve O'Keeffe, Clare O'Keeffe and Tadhg Buckley. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.